at least 7 others wounded. In Russia, 4 journalists going on trial now in Moscow. That after being accused of working for an anti-corruption group founded by the late Russian opposition politician Alexei Navalny that was designated by authorities as a, quote, extremist organization in Russia in 2021. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident that was not your fault, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by to answer your questions for free. Call now and find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-504-8790. I'm here with spokesman John Wolf. So, John, tell everyone listening who should call right now.
Well, Maria, first off, thank you for having me here. It's always nice to answer the listeners' questions. Now, as far as who should call in, anyone who's been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, give us a call right now. 800-504-8790. You'll find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth.
Thanks, John. You heard it, folks. Take advantage of this opportunity and call now. 800-504-8790.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center, may not be available in all states.
Russell.
Big oil means a big investment for a very small country in South America.
Officials say France's Total Energies and U.S. hydrocarbon company APA Corporation plan to invest $10 billion to extract oil off the coast of Suriname. Total Energies says it expects first oil by mid-2028 with an anticipated production of 220,000 barrels a day. The so-called Grand Morgu project focuses on an offshore area believed to contain some 700 million barrels of oil. It's the largest investment in Suriname's history. Bob Agnew reporting.
United Kingdom and the European Union say they'll strengthen their relationship after the damage caused by Brexit. They plan to set a working agenda and to hold a series of meetings, including issues like economic growth, energy, security, and migration. London's relations with the EU has gone off the rails. The UK left the world's biggest trading bloc. Breaking news and analysis, townhall.com.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here's tonight's forecast. Mostly clear this evening with a low temp dipping to 65. If you've enjoyed today's weather, tomorrow is a clone. Similar blend of sunshine and some clouds. We top off at 84 again as the high. Looking ahead, we expect high temperatures in the mid-80s throughout the rest of the week. I'm Cal Moss with your On Point local weather.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point.
Great things don't happen all at once. Big dreams take time. And when it comes to saving for college, it's those small steps that make a difference. I'm State Treasurer Curtis Loftus. Future Scholar, South Carolina's 5-9 college savings plan, is designed to be taken step by step. You can start with any amount, contributions are tax deductible, and earnings grow tax-free. So why wait? Discover the smart, easy way to save for college at futurescholar.com.
This is Sports Talk with Phil Kornblut and Chris Bergen. Sports Talk is heard across the state on radio affiliates of the Sports Talk Media Network and is streaming live on SportsTalkSC.com, as well as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. The South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number to call in is 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now, here are Phil and Chris with tonight's edition of Sports Talk.
Well, this is weird. I get the big part of the screen. What's up with that, Josh? You need to be in the big part of the screen.
Not
Hi, folks, and welcome into a Wednesday edition of Sports Talk, Sports Talk Media Network on a fabulous day across the state of South Carolina. Power starting to pop back on all over the upstate, which is encouraging news. And hopefully, maybe by the end of this week, everybody will be at least back to some sort of semblance of normalcy with power. And then, of course, it's going to take considerable time to try and get our state cleaned up, much less what our neighbors to the north have to deal with in North Carolina. But grateful that power is starting to come back on across the upstate, and we're certainly glad to have you on board with us here tonight on Sports Talk. 888-898-2525. The reason I get the big spot, for some reason anyway, on our video stream is Phil Kornblut is out tonight and tomorrow celebrating Rosh Hashanah. So we wish all of you who celebrate a very happy Rosh Hashanah. Phil will be back on a Football Friday, but in the meantime, Josh Cohen back in our Columbia studios. I'm Chris Bergen here in our PD studios in Sardis, and anytime Corn is out, we take full advantage by going to the bullpen and calling out our ace reliever. Matt Smith joins us tonight from Georgetown, fresh off watching what has turned out to be just tremendous baseball since Monday, Smitty. I can't remember sitting down and watching as much Major League Baseball over the last couple of years as I have this week alone. I still have a hard time with the length of the regular season. I don't normally watch much during June, July, and August, but boy, it's been must-see TV, including Detroit knocking out the Houston Astros, and we can all rejoice as the Astros are out of the playoffs in Detroit. The 6th seed is on its way to the ALDS.
Yeah, like you, I was glad to see Detroit advance, and I know Josh was. We have a Tigers fan in our midst, but if you obviously we're all working and everybody has their own responsibilities during the day, but that's kind of what makes baseball cool too, is you get these weekday games, and maybe if you're trying to do two things, you kind of have your head on a swivel and you look back, wait a minute, I thought the Astros are up 2-1, I thought they were down, and then you keep watching, and the Tigers have the remarkable comeback in the 8th inning. And if you didn't get to see it, and of course we'll let Josh give his thoughts because he's a young man, but he is still a long-suffering Detroit Tigers fan. But the 8th inning was just great baseball, great high drama. The Tigers were down 2-1, but they went in against Ryan Presley and Josh Hader. And I think Josh Hader's a name that probably most of us know. He's one of the highest paid relievers in Major League Baseball. That is just a filthy 1-2 punch the Astros have. Ryan Presley has some of the best swing and miss breaking stuff in all of baseball. And the Tigers got to him, didn't quit, 4 runs in the 8th. And the franchise of Hank Greenberg and Al Kaline and Ty Cobb and Jack Morris and Kirk Gibson and Lou Whitaker and Alan Trammell is back in the spotlight. And I like it. I'm glad. I love it when we get, the Royals and the Orioles and the Tigers bubbling up a little bit. I don't like the Padres. I'm a Dodgers fan, but I'll throw them in there as well. It's pretty cool to see that. And also when you really dig in, and Chris, you were doing this before the show. You were telling me about some stories with the Braves that we'll go into when we start talking about Braves Padres. But Sean Gunther of the Detroit Tigers is out there today as it was a parade of relievers for the Tigers. Get this. Since 2021, Sean Gunther has pitched for Erie, Lakeland, and Toledo. And here he is, facing down Jose Altuve and Yordan Alvarez with, trying to sweep the Astros. This is a guy that was a Toledo mud hen 2 months ago, and now he's standing on the mound with much of the world watching. Much of the world was working, but some of the world watching, and he comes through and he picks up the win. And I think it's great drama. And you and I talked about it beforehand. We'll see what kind of calls we get tonight and what kind of calls we get the rest of this week, and we'll let Josh say his piece. But I'm like you. I think this is tremendous. We love sports, and if you love sports, what do you love? You love 8th inning, runners on 2nd and 3rd with 2 outs, 4th and 1 with 2 minutes left on the clock, 30 seconds left, and here comes LeBron James with the ball across half court. This is what we live for. And so if you like sports and you like drama, I think the Major League Baseball playoffs in this format is for you.
Gunther got 5 outs on 13 pitches to get the win. He threw 13 pitches in an inning and 2/3, And then Vest came in to get the final 3 outs to get the save. But just remarkable stuff from Detroit. First time since, what do we figure, 2016 that the Houston Astros won't be in the ALCS, much less the ALDS. I still have a hard time translating and configuring Houston into an American League team, but nonetheless, they have dominated the American League postseason over the last decade. They'll not be there. And you talked about Gunther, almost reminded me, Smitty, of the story we were talking about Grant Holmes, the Conway native who pitched on Monday for the Braves 30 minutes after he found out he was going to start the most important game of the year. Number 162, he goes out there, pitches very well, and helps guide the Braves into the playoffs. Now they'll have to figure out a way tonight to get past San Diego and extend that series to 3 games. But Josh, we don't talk much Detroit stuff, but if there was ever a day for you to sit and brag on your Tigers, today is certainly that day.
Well, I can brag all I want, but let me be honest with you. I'm not that big of a baseball fan. I don't get me wrong. I love Detroit. I love baseball in general. I've really actually started to get a new idea for baseball in this past year, but don't get me wrong. It's a great accomplishment for the Detroit Tigers. But listen, go Tigers. That's all I have to say. That's all.
So if the Tigers won the World Series or the Lions got to the Super Bowl, not win the Super Bowl, but just got to the Super Bowl, what's the bigger accomplishment in the city of Detroit?
For me, it's for me, I don't know. I've never lived in Detroit. I think the Lions would be a bigger accomplishment for us.
I think you're probably right.
But it
Don't
all
you, Smitty?
pales in comparison to the Red Wings just winning on a Thursday night, Randy.
Even in Hockey Town. All right, 888-898-2525. We've got time for your phone calls tonight. We'll get to those in a little bit. Coming up on the program, we'll run through some other news and notes. Busy, newsy day, especially in NASCAR. Got a fascinating story about Michael Jordan taking on NASCAR. We'll delve into that as the show unfolds. Also coming up tonight, we'll hear from Coastal Carolina head football coach Tim Beck. The Chanticleer is back at work this coming Saturday. They'll take on Old Dominion. He held his weekly press conference a bit earlier today in Conway to size up the matchup with ODU. Meantime, we'll hear from at least one, if not both, of the USC coordinators as they get ready for Ole Miss on Saturday. We certainly want to get Clayton White's comments about trying to slow down the Ole Miss offense. And then if we have time as well, we'll get Dowell Loggins' thoughts about moving the football against a very, very good and stingy Ole Miss defense. Also tonight, of course, it'll be Chalk Talk, and we will catch up for sure with Coach Ellis Johnson. We are also hoping to land, Smitty, as we normally do, Coach Chuck Reedy. The problem is with Coach Reedy, as he often is during the fall, he is out of the country on vacation. So hopefully we'll be able to link up with him just after 7 o'clock tonight to get his take on what he saw this past weekend, and certainly looking forward to this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, you mentioned Clayton White having his hands full, and he certainly will. And this is going to be a motivated Ole Miss team. I think that's no secret. They took their first loss of the year against Kentucky. And at the beginning of this season, as you looked at how it might unfold, I think most observers, most pundits had Ole Miss where no worse than 9-3, right? 11-1, 10-2, 9-3. They were somewhere in that neighborhood. And South Carolina was probably viewed as little more than a speed bump. But this South Carolina team, they could make it their kind of game. Everything that Kentucky did to Ole Miss, South Carolina is actually better at doing, because I think South Carolina has a better defensive line, a better pass rush than Kentucky does. The one thing Kentucky did, and you mentioned this, when we spoke earlier, they were able to, like a triple option team, like a Paul Johnson offense, like Navy, like Army, like Air Force, they were able to play keep away. And what we haven't seen from South Carolina to me this season, and everybody's, obviously we're going to have our own opinions, 888-898-2525. I think this is a South Carolina offense that has shown flashes of being able to do some good things. But in those flashes, I haven't seen consistency. You can argue with me if you like, but I don't think this is a team that you can count on to put together drive after drive after drive. If you need a 5-minute drive to soak the clock, you're secure in knowing that Sellers and Sanders and Mazio Bennett are going to go take the field and do that for you. I think it's more like a team that is going to have fits and starts that will be cold for a quarter and then come out and make some adjustments and then come back with back-to-back scoring drives. And I think against Ole Miss, it's actually you need to be more consistent. You need to move the chains. There's going to be a lot of 3rd and 4s and 3rd and 3s and 4th and 1s in this game that are going to be so pivotal that South Carolina needs to pick up. And I think that's where they need to grow as an offense.
Especially on 3rd down. They've got to improve, sitting right around 30% for the season on 3rd down. The reason Kentucky was able to keep Ole Miss at bay is that offense in Jackson Dart sat on the sidelines. And the reason they were able to do that is they converted possession downs, and that's what USC is going to certainly have to do on Saturday. Also coming up on the program tonight, we'll go outdoors, another edition of SC Wild. Like the 4th edition of SC Wild we've had in the last 5 weeks. So it's pretty cool to have Major Billy Downer back. He wants to talk about the impact of Hurricane Helene on the deer season and where things stand. So you'll certainly, if you're a hunter and getting into a deer season, you'll certainly want to stick around after 7:30 to get his take on where things stand right now, especially with all the high water around the area, certainly damaged trees down everywhere. So we'll give you the latest on that coming up just after 7:30. All right, we'll get to your phone calls in just a couple of moments. Wanted to hit on a couple of other news notes before we do so. Wofford football. This is an interesting story, and you could see it coming. But Western Carolina announcing today that due to Jackson County, North Carolina's continued state of emergency, Western and Wofford will play their scheduled game up at Cullowhee at 2:30 on Saturday afternoon without spectators. Western saying in a release there are still rescue and recovery efforts happening around our region, and the NC Department of Transportation has requested everyone in the area keep roads clear for emergency and disaster relief vehicles to get to the hardest hit areas. Campus officials are also sensitive to the impact this storm has had on our local community and the scarcity of resources in Jackson County, including water, food, electricity, and fuel, and do not want to take away those much needed resources to host a typical game day experience that our fans are used to in Cullowhee. Should conditions change, the university will provide an update. So I get all of that, and props to Western and Wofford to agree to this situation. It's probably, if you're going to have the game in Cullowhee, it's probably the best case scenario. My question is, why not just move the game to Wofford? I get it, it's a conference game, but just move the game out of Cullowhee altogether and play in Spartanburg.
Yeah, I wonder, well, for one thing, Spartanburg, South Carolina isn't doing that much better. I know my family is in Spartanburg. And I was just speaking to some family members, and they just had their power restored. So Wofford may also have its hands full, and maybe getting the team from Western North Carolina down to Spartanburg and Gibbs Stadium. Maybe it wasn't going to be that much better a situation. Maybe Spartanburg's not
fair.
Really I know that. Look, with all due respect, I know Western North Carolina, because of the mudslides, was devastated even more so. But I know in Spartanburg, it's just been, 48 hours or maybe less that all the gas stations have been back open. So, no, but look, I don't know that to be a fact. I don't know any of that to be a fact. I'm speculating on why, to your question. I don't know if there are any right answers here, Chris.
No, I don't think so. I think you're right.
I actually thought when I was about to open that email, I thought they might just cancel the game altogether. But I suppose there's also an element of the show must go on. This is what we do. That we love the pageantry of college football Saturdays, but sometimes we have to be reminded in this era of NIL and the transfer portal and television money and realignment. It's actually about student athletes. It's actually there. We're supposed to keep the spotlight on them. They're supposed to have these 4 years to play, and this is supposed to be, about what they, this is supposed to be part of their life on that campus, and sometimes we forget that. So playing without fans, I look at it, you got to do what you got to do sometimes.
Yeah, there's not a good solution, I'm sure, either way. If you take Western and have them come to Spartanburg, I see difficulties of getting the Catamounts out of town, but you're now asking the Terriers to try and get into North Carolina, Western North Carolina, and that's not going to be easy either. So props to them for finding a way to play. I just was wondering if Spartanburg would be a better solution to what is a horrible situation all the way around.
Yeah, you might absolutely be right. And this is something, again, I just talked about, in this area of television money. We forget sometimes if you don't, and even Chris, now Coastal Carolina is far enough away from it as an FBS program. Cullowhee, North Carolina, as they mentioned, it takes a lot. It takes a lot to put on a college football game. They don't have the resources. So this is very interesting. And I'm sure one of the really good sports writers, either from their area or from that Spartanburg area, maybe working for the Spartanburg Herald Journal, is going to have a really good story about this, a really good feature on this that we should follow up and check out after it's over. I know David Shelton covered a high school football game with no fans a couple of weeks back at Bishop England, and this is that was for a completely different reason, but just pointing out sometimes this leads to some really interesting stories after the fact. So we'll keep an eye out for that.
And obviously, as you could hear a minute ago, my dog's actually excited about the game being played. I'm not sure why. He's never really shown an interest in Western Carolina football. I will say this: he was fascinated with the tail end of the Tigers-Astros game this afternoon. He was glued into the TV.
Well, your dog probably doesn't like catamounts.
All right, and speaking of baseball, as we mentioned, Tigers beat the Astros 5-2 earlier this afternoon. They win the wild card series 2-0. They'll advance on to the ALDS, where they'll get their divisional rivals in the Cleveland Guardians in the next round. Meantime, bottom of the fifth inning in Baltimore, the Royals and Orioles are tied at a run apiece, 5 hits for each, 1 error by Kansas City. Coming up tonight, you've got the Mets and Brewers. And the Brewers trying to stave off elimination. Meantime, the Braves trying to do likewise after being shut out last night by the Padres. They'll send Max Fried to the mound at 8:30 this evening to take on San Diego. We'll get to some more news and notes coming up as the evening unfolds. Plus, as we mentioned, SC Wild, Chalk Talk, and your phone calls tonight at 888-898-2525. And let's head off to the phones and kick things off on this Wednesday night as we say hello to Gamecock Larry. You're up first here on Sports Talk. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, everybody. Well, I'm glad this is getting a little bit better. But you know what? Clemson's going down to Florida State, and they gonna win this game. I hate to even predict the score. I think they're gonna win by 25 points. I believe Clemson's gonna win. First time I ever know I ain't gonna predict no Clemson win. I'm gonna predict Florida State. I'm gonna predict Florida State 38, Clemson 17. That's my prediction. That's my prediction. And I can't predict Clemson to win. I can't do that.
Well, I thought you were trying to pull the wool over our eyes.
And I can't predict Carolina to lose. But sometimes strange things happen. But I just want to tell you how much I appreciate 100.7. And I really enjoy you letting the old Gamecock holler a little bit because it makes my day. I can lean back here now and doze off to sleep. But I love y'all. Have a great day. Go Gamecocks. Talk to you later.
All right, Larry, we appreciate it. 888-898-2525. Smitty, I thought for sure something had happened if Gamecock Larry is predicting Clemson to go down and beat Florida State by double digits. Of course, he called in yesterday and said that Florida State would roll Clemson because I remember making the comment after he hung up. I didn't have the heart to tell him face-to-face that there's no way this Clemson team is losing to that Florida State team.
No, Florida State's falling apart fast. I think we're all missing out on seeing DJ Uyunglele play. I mean, Florida State fans aren't, because it's been a disaster with Uyunglele behind center for FSU. That has not worked. That marriage has not worked at all. And I was just kind of interested to see how he would perform against Clemson. And, I guess, I don't know. I don't even know how it's going to work out. I guess he's healthy enough to see and visit the other guys that he might have known at the time and go speak to Coach Sweeney and all of those things. And we'll still get to see that. But I really was interested in seeing him perform against Clemson. And look, I didn't have high expectations for him because he had, to me, a bit of a bump where Oregon State used him perfectly. But other than that, DJ Youngale has to be labeled just a 6'5" disappointment in college football with where his career is. I mean, he had some good numbers with the Beavers, but when you look at their level of competition and you really broke it down, he didn't have that many 300-yard passing games or anything. It hasn't worked out. That he's never come, to me, in my mind, never come within 100 miles of the hype that was heaped on him coming out of high school.
Should Dabo and the Clemson coaching staff get more credits for turning him into a very, very, I won't say elite, clearly, but a very good quarterback? I mean, they won a lot of ball games with him behind center. I don't know what's happened. Did his talent erode from leaving Clemson to go to Oregon State and now certainly has evaporated from him at Florida State? Or was this the guy at Florida State that Clemson got, and they actually molded him in with the talent around him to turn him into a very serviceable quarterback?
No, I think that's a good question. I think maybe who was the offensive coordinator prior to Garrett Riley that was DJ Younglele's OC at Clemson?
Well, Tony Elliott? Was he there when?
No, it was after
DJ,
Tony Elliott.
Okay, right after Tony Elliott. I have to go back and double check.
Who was that? Wow,
I don't remember right off the top of my head.
I'm sure everybody. We'll get the. I can't believe I've forgotten, but anyway, everybody's yelling at the radio right now. But I think maybe he deserves some credit, right? Because everybody was asking, "What's wrong with the Clemson offense?" Are we sure it wasn't DJ Youngale? And then a young Cade Klubnik last year, because Klubnik has elevated his game this year in Garrett Riley's second season after the slow start against Georgia. Otherwise, it's been pretty good. The Clemson offense has been excellent, except for that first game, which look, South Carolina didn't have a good first game. Most teams around the country did not offensively. Many of them did not. So I think you just got to say that Clemson may just, like others, they just miscalculated. You look at DJ Youngale, he can throw the ball through a car wash without it getting wet, but he can't throw it to anybody in particular. And that's just inaccurate, just inconsistent. And in this era of college football where so much is on the quarterback's shoulders, it used to be that a quarterback was just kind of part and parcel of what an offense might do, and you could win with a running game and a strong offensive line. These days, the quarterback is always a major part of a game plan. I mean, almost everybody throws the ball more than they run it in this era, and you just can't get away with inconsistent quarterback play. And DJ Youngale was inconsistent at Clemson and inconsistent at Florida State, and he's hurt now. Won't see him play.
Yeah, it's a shame. I made the comment earlier that you also have a situation where NC State did not have a chance to run Grayson McCall out there against the Tigers a couple of weekends ago, and that was probably the game that Grayson was most looking forward to playing in when he transferred from Coastal up to NC State. But injuries certainly have taken away that opportunity as well. All right, 888-898-2525. If you'd like to join us, we'll slide out for the bottom of the hour timeout. When we come back, we'll delve in further into that USC Ole Miss matchup and hear what Clayton White had to say a bit earlier today about slowing down the Rebels. Do that next here on Sports Talk.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here's tonight's forecast. Mostly clear this evening with a low temp dipping to 65. If you've enjoyed today's weather, tomorrow is a clone. Similar blend of sunshine and some clouds. We top off at 84 again as the high. Looking ahead, we expect high temperatures in the mid-80s throughout the rest of the week. I'm Cal Moss with your On Point local weather.
The hunting season is here. Whether you hunt in the woods or near the water, Palmetto State Armory has you covered with everything you need for the season. PSA has a complete inventory of AR-style rifles, bolt-action rifles, shotguns, ammunition, outdoor apparel, decoys, and more from all of your favorite brands. Visit PalmettoStateArmory.com to find the store near you. Palmetto State Armory, American made for life.
The Point.
With SRN News, I'm Jason Walker. Federal prosecutors might be bringing additional charges against New York Mayor Eric Adams. It is alleged Adams accepted $100,000 worth of travel, meals, and entertainment from Turkish officials who wanted to gain influence. United Kingdom and the European Union say they will strengthen their relationship following the damage caused by Brexit. They plan to set a working agenda and to hold a series of meetings, including issues like economic growth, energy, security, and migration. More than 100 people are missing after it capsized in Nigeria. Authorities say most of the victims were women and children. And 4 Russian journalists have gone on trial in Moscow after being accused of working for an anti-corruption group funded by a late Russian opposition leader. This is SRN News.
I was thinking about the things that matter to me when it comes to calling the plumber. First, most of us call the plumber out of a need, often a crisis. So you want reliability. Then, we're in a vulnerable place already, so you want someone you can trust, someone who will be fair in their pricing and handle things professionally. These are some of the reasons I feel comfortable recommending Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning. See, they've been out to my home. They've been out to my brother's home, too. Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning did such a great job. Maybe this might not matter as much to some people, but they're locally owned. A lot of these plumbing companies you've heard of used to be local, and now they're owned by big national or even international conglomerates. Working with a locally owned company matters. It keeps your pricing down, and the money stays local here in the community. Josh and his team at Franklin makes customer service their top priority. I trust them. You can too, especially during these vulnerable times. Online, it's franklinplumbing.sc.com or call them 799-2222. That's 799-2222.
Tradition and quality. That's what you get with H&J Cattle Company, where local third-generation farmers ensure you receive the finest beef in South Carolina. Our registered Hereford and Wagyu cattle are raised with sustainable practices, without growth hormones, antibiotics, or animal byproducts. Taste the difference with the highest quality beef guaranteed. Order now at hdjcattle.co or on Instagram and Facebook at H&J-Cattle.co. Again, hdjcattle.co. Where ethics meets quality.
Hun, did you see the power bill? I feel like we're trying to cool the outside with these old original windows from the house.
Yeah, they are old. They let the cool air out and the hot air in. Plus, they're really ugly. I think it's time we finally get those new windows.
I think we need to call Redbird Windows and Doors.
Oh yeah, they'd get the Miller's house up the street.
I got their card when I was talking to the Millers. Here it is, Redbird Windows and Doors, 727-0561. Oh, and let's look at their website too, redbirdwindows.com.
Give me that number again.
727-0561.
Hey, gardeners, expert or beginner, come out and get your seeds and plants from Growing Your Garden with Sal this season. They're an SE certified farm offering local vegetable seedlings as well as plants and seeds. We teach you how to grow your garden even if you don't have a green thumb. Online at salslocalseed.com or visit 113 Hilltop Drive in Columbia. That's salslocalseed.com. Support your local farmers.
As we celebrate 10 fantastic years at Sweet Comfort Services, we're cooling you off with unbeatable deals on all SEER 2 and high-efficiency AC equipment. Hey, Point family, mention this ad and get a thorough spring maintenance check from our expert technician techs for just $95 for your first system and a chill $45 each additional system. Look us up at sweethvac.com or call us at 331-8143. Celebrating a decade of keeping you cool and comfy. That's the Sweet Comfort promise.
Smitty and Chris here with you tonight. Phil Kornblut off for Rosh Hashanah. Josh Cohen, our producer, is really just spinning in his chair, celebrating the fact that his family's favorite team, the Detroit Tigers, knocked off the Houston Astros earlier today. And yes, I had a brain freeze in the last segment. Forgive me. Brandon Streeter, who we've interviewed many, many times, and we were there. And, of course, Phil and I asking him some tough questions after some poor performances. I was just saying that if you go back and look at DJ Uiagalelei's career, now look, I don't know how much credit you give an offensive coordinator sometimes, but Uiagalelei was bad enough to be benched for Cade Klubnik in the ACC championship at the end of the season after that South Carolina loss. But Brandon Streeter was at least the OC when DJ Younghoe was at his best. I mean, maybe at his best would have been the little spots we saw him at against Notre Dame and maybe
Right.
at Wake Forest. But and Tony Elliott was the previously the OC, which you mentioned. But Brandon Streeter just had that 1 year in 2022. Clemson's offense wasn't very good. But now looking back, I don't know. I kept saying that offense is not very good, but I don't know how much of that specific blame now goes to Brandon Streeter. I'm sure he's at Georgia. He's an offensive analyst, and he played at Clemson. So he may look back and say, "Oh, I wish I would have gotten just another crack at it." But the natives were restless about getting a new OC and wanted to go get a hot shot, and they didn't get Garrett Riley. So maybe it worked out for everybody. But I was just saying that I think maybe Brandon Streeter got a lot of flack that year, and hey, probably plenty from me because the Clemson offense wasn't good.
Oh, sure.
Younghoe was at his best, whatever that is, a 6 out of 10 that year, and he was terrible against South Carolina, and he got benched in the ACC championship against North Carolina. But again, Brandon Streeter took a lot of blame for that, and now DJ Younghoe moved on, and he hasn't done much better under two different offensive coordinators since.
So, yeah, Brandon Streeter wanted to make sure we got that out there. All right, 888-898-2525. We'll get to some of the coaches' comments from today in just a little while, but let's head back to the phones and visit with you. And we start up this second half hour with Josh here in Florence. Good evening, Josh. Welcome into Sports Talk.
How you guys doing?
We're good. How about yourself?
Doing good, man. Yeah, y'all were talking about DJ, and as a Clemson fan, I watched every one of his games. At 22-6, I think he was as a starter. So I don't know. That's amazing to think about that number now. I guess it's because as fans we remember the bad games and the losses.
Mm-hmm.
But 22-6, and that's not a terrible record for a starter in college football. And he did good things at Oregon. I don't know when the wheels fell off or what happened with this kid.
Yeah, I'm not sure either because he had all the attributes. I mean, you look at him, he looks like a NFL-type quarterback. He's got the size, the strength, and I thought for the most part he was another one in that line of great quarterbacks to play at Clemson, and he's not even in the same stratosphere as a guy like Trevor Lawrence, which I didn't think he would be quite that good, but I thought he certainly wasn't going to fall off that precipitous. And they've gotten it right now with Klubnik, it appears. But, yeah, I think we've all been surprised with DJ's performance.
Yeah, and you keep hoping the kid could turn it around and make something, but I just don't see it happen. I was trying to remember if he had another year, but I think this is it for him.
It's a great question. I'd have to check. It's hard to keep everything straight now that the COVID years are starting to end. So this may be his last stop, and I'm not sure he's going to get a chance. He might get a tryouts with an NFL team, but I'm not sure that he's going to play much football past Florida State.
Yeah, I just was going to mention that this is his final go-round because he played 10 games as a freshman, just competed, just was a part of it before being the starter at Clemson in 21 and 22, and then at Oregon State. And I think that, like I'm going to use air quotes, was his COVID year, and then this is his senior season, his 5th year. So this is it for DJ Younghoe, and I don't know. You never know what goes through somebody's mind, but you just wonder if he regrets it. He was putting up some decent numbers, over 2,600 yards passing at Oregon State. You just wonder if he'd have stayed there, would he have been more comfortable and things, and he, just would have been playing a little bit better. And I know with that body, you almost think an NFL team would bring him to camp just to watch him throw a football 85 yards down the field.
Josh, that it for you?
Yeah,
all right, Josh.
Yeah, he's gone.
He's gone. Absolutely. 888-898-2525. Again, 888-898-2525. We'll stay on the phones and head up to Spartanburg and check in with Nelson. Nelson, you're up next here on Sports Talk. Good evening, sir.
How you doing?
Oh, we're doing well. How about yourself?
Oh, well, we're recovering.
That's great to hear.
Hit head on by the hurricane, of course, and I got my power back yesterday, so things are even in downtown. I'm still seeing a lot of traffic lights out, so even downtown power's still off in a lot of areas. But yeah, there was probably close to 400,000 people here in Spartanburg didn't have power.
Wow.
At the very worst of it. So it's amazing how many power lines are down, how many trees are down. But anyway, I heard my buddy Gamecock Larry a while ago, so I just had to call in. He's supposed to be having a fish fry in his honor pretty soon. I've been invited to. But yeah, you talk about Uyungule. I've met Smitty a few times. He knows that I'm just a 6'5" disappointment also. So I know how DJ feels. But anyway,
I have bet Nelson.
well, I don't
Nelson
know. I
is
probably
6'5", but I don't know if DJ's got a career coming in slow pitch softball. But I know Nelson was a legend in that era, in that area.
I was thinking say I could probably hit a softball a lot further than he could. But anyway, I could throw a football about as far as he could too. But I never got a chance to play. But anyway, I may be like him though. In high school I could throw a football about 72 yards, 73 yards, but hitting a target.
Wow.
That's the key. You got to be able to hit a target. So he and I may have a lot in common. But anyway, I haven't been able to listen to you guys much lately. Just curious, Carolina's recruiting, anything big happening, or have you heard anything much?
Let's see. I've actually got Phil's recruiting reports. They've got a linebacker from Dutch Fork, Josh Smith, who is decommitted from Coastal. He's got South Carolina on his short list along with NC State and Ole Miss. He's supposed to, I think it looks like he'll be at the Ole Miss game on Saturday. So that, unfortunately, you called probably the wrong night when Phil's not here, Nelson, because he could give you a lot better than I can. But we will have a little recruiting later on that'll cover some of that.
Okay, this is not the first time Phil's disappointed me, so I anyway,
it's a daily occurrence.
I'll tell Smitty. Yeah, I tell Smitty I ran into your buddy Clary this morning. I hadn't seen him in a while, but saw him on his way in the radio station. Anyway, you guys have a good one.
Nelson, thank you. We appreciate the phone call, and be safe out there in Spartanburg. And good to hear things are slowly improving in the upstate. All right, 888-898-2525. Let's squeeze in Hank in Columbia before we hit our next break. We'll come back and hear from Tim Beck, head coach at Coastal Carolina. Hank, welcome into Sports Talk. How you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing good. I was just calling to kind of comment on the kind of the open comments about the Carolina against Ole Miss with the offense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this actually plays a whole lot more into Carolina's hand than it even did Kentucky, because if you remember the first couple of games, the biggest thing was they would say that Carolina wouldn't have explosives. But with the combination of Sanders, Sellers, and even the receivers weren't as developed back then, Carolina, even within the Kentucky game, they had a series of kind of plotting down the field. You didn't have the third downs, but they would get 4 yards here, 5 yards here. They would let Lenoris roll out, and he had so many options. And then we were trying to look for more explosive plays, whereas what they started off with would be perfect for this game. You're getting 4 and 5 yards. You got a dual threat quarterback that you got to account for, and then that messes defenses up, because Vandegrift did some, but he's not the runner that Sellers is, and didn't even seem like that's in his wheelhouse to do as much. So I think Carolina, if they don't even go with the explosives, can just methodically go down the field, because it's always hard when you have a running quarterback and you have a stalwart back.
No, you're right, and I think that's one thing certainly that Kentucky was able to do against Ole Miss is possess the football. And I'm convinced Lane Kiffin gets frustrated and impatient when he doesn't have the ball enough, and he feels like every time he touches it, if the possessions are starting to get short, I've got to score, and I've got to score fast. So I think that's one thing Kentucky did an extremely good job of. My only concern with the Gamecocks, and you're right, Hank, about trying to methodically and plod their way down the field, they've got to convert on third downs at a little bit better rate than they have been.
Yeah, but I think they've had teams that have been a little bit more out there. I think with what they have now, and the receivers are markedly better than they were the first game or so. Or I think they're just more comfortable. If you're taking that and walking down the field and not trying to get big chunk plays and explosive plays, I think when you have a big burrowsome running back with a quarterback like that will pull and run, I think it kind of pays off. I remember one time we beat Clemson when Beneville first got there, and he said what killed them was Connor Shaw would just take them 4 or 5 yards and third down.
Mm-hmm.
He run it out there, and we just walked down the field. He said it was demoralized. So we'll see.
Yeah, Hank, let me mention this too, that I didn't mention in my opening comments, which is another advantage for South Carolina is Ole Miss played, I think, at Wake. That is the toughest road environment they've seen this season. South Carolina, 3:30 Saturday, it was going to be a different world. So that home field advantage will play a factor. Ole Miss is trying to get well, but they're trying to get well by going on the road in a tough environment. So that's something that Jackson Dart, look, he dealt with it last year, and they played tough venues every year, but this year's Ole Miss team hasn't played in a hostile road environment yet this year.
Yeah, that's true. And there's going to be a lot of motivation for the Carolina guys because you got Wells coming back in here, and they played against guys that they had transferred out before, but they haven't played against a guy that gave so much lip service to how he had to be in a better situation with a better team and all that he's had. So I think it'll be a little bit different.
Who was targeted, I believe, only twice and did not catch a pass against Kentucky on Saturday. Hank, we appreciate it. Good to hear from you.
All right.
888-898-2525. Hank, of course, talking about Juice Wells. And so we will see, Smitty. I would imagine Lane Kiffin wants to certainly get him much more involved in the offense than he was on Saturday against Kentucky.
Yeah, that'll be a fun matchup to watch. Look, I think South Carolina's defense is legit. I don't think Ole Miss is going to run through their defense. My concerns for the Gamecocks, as you brought up, it's third down. And I actually see some of the comments here, and some very good comments that I'm seeing on our Sports Talk StreamYard about how big first down is. And that's absolutely the truth. It makes Dow Loggins' life a lot easier if Lenore Sellers or Rocket Sanders can scamper for 4 or 5 yards and stay ahead of the chains. But if you throw a lot of incomplete passes or have negative plays on first down, you're playing into Ole Miss's hands, which they have a great, whatever you think of Ole Miss, and maybe they're a little bit overblown because they played a soft schedule early, their pass rush is real. So South Carolina needs to avoid third and long and obvious passing games. You say that in every football game, but I think even more so because Lenore Sellers has put the football on the ground a couple of times. And against Ole Miss's pass rush, don't face 3rd and 12.
Great things don't happen all at once. Big dreams take time. And when it comes to saving for college, it's those small steps that make a difference. I'm State Treasurer Curtis Loftus. Future Scholar, Carolina's 2-9 college savings plan, is designed to be taken step by step. You can start with any amount, contributions are tax deductible, and earnings grow tax-free. So why wait? Discover the smart, easy way to save for college at futurescholar.com.
Major Billy Downer here from the Department of Natural Resources, and DNR is excited to announce the implementation of Go Outdoors SC, a new online licensing and boat titling system that you can access right from your phone. Through this new system, customers can purchase their hunting and fishing licenses, renew their boats, apply for lottery hunt opportunities, and complete electronic harvest reporting requirements. For more information, visit Go Outdoors SC at your local app store.
Your home is where your memories live. It's where you laugh and where you love. We understand the importance of the valuables under your roof, tangible and intangible alike. So no matter what's around the corner, we'll be there, offering you and your family the support that's made Farm Bureau Insurance a trusted name for nearly 70 years. You deserve more. You deserve a promise. Learn more at scfbins.com.
Call me, Alex Satterfield, at 803-749-9171 for all of your Midlands insurance needs.
I'm attorney Jim Corbett. That's the sound of a big hit on you and your car or truck. I've been an attorney for more than 30 years, helping people who get injured in trucks and truck wrecks. If you have serious injuries, call Jim Corbett, 803-765-2968, or email me at jim@jimcorbettattorney.com. That's CORBETT. I don't get paid unless I recover for you. Jim Corbett Attorney, for your best recovery from a big hit, 803-765-2968, or jim@jimcorbettattorney.com.
Hi, this is Major Billy Downer, and coming up tonight at 7:30, it's another edition of SC Wild from the Department of Natural Resources on the Sports Talk Media Network.
Touchstone Energy cooperative members save more on electricity, and members save more on insurance, groceries, healthcare, restaurants, travel, concerts, and sporting events through co-op connections. Touchstone Energy is of the member-owned electric cooperatives, and as a member, the power is yours. Experience the power of co-op membership with Touchstone Energy and find out how much you can save on electricity and a whole lot more at touchstoneenergy.com.
George Bryant for Tsunami Bar Sports, our inventor, David Abernathy, has always said Tsunami Bar technology allows us to take the training to the grass. Now I know through my sport of golf that natural agility can be converted to athletic ability. And why is this, Tsunami Robbie?
Transferring the training to the grass. This may be the most undervalued characteristic of the Tsunami flexible bar technology. The Tsunami bar action loads and unloads at the concentric and eccentric transition points. This is what we call reversals. And the Tsunami bar is the only bar and training device that I know of that can train these reversal forces adequately at speed.
Hey, this is Phil Kornblut. The Tsunami Bar is a terrific training device, whether you're working on your fitness or your golf game. It's convenient, it's easy to use, and you won't feel beat up afterwards. Be sure to click on the digital ad on SportsTalkSC.com and get 5% off any order using promo code BBB5. Don't wait, order today.
Chris Johnson-Smitty with you on this Wednesday night. We'll get the expert opinion just after the top of the hour. Chalk Talk with coaches Ellis Johnson and also Chuck Reedy. SC Wild coming up after 7:30 as well. Dabo Swinney meeting with the media for the final time prior to their trip down to Florida State on Saturday. According to Chapel Fowler of the State, Swinney saying in his press conference there are no lingering injury issues for starting wide receiver Antonio Williams, who left the Stanford game but has practiced in full this week heading into Florida State. He's good to go. He's good to go. Dabo reiterating that, so they'll have Antonio Williams a full go on Saturday against the Seminoles. Meantime, Coastal Carolina getting back to work this Saturday as they'll take on Old Dominion, and they're coming off a much-needed bye week because they're dinged up as well. Their head coach Tim Beck held his weekly press conference a bit earlier today to chat about the matchup with Old Dominion, opening up Sun Belt Conference play on Saturday.
Just excited to get back to playing. You know, it's been a great bye week. I know our players are excited to play at home again, right? And do a better job this time for sure. And we're excited to get the Conwave back out and all the people in Teal Nation to support and to show up loud and strong. And our guys are excited to get out there and for conference play.
Coach, what was the biggest thing that you keyed on during the bye week that you felt like you guys needed to work on? Maybe not just one thing, but several things that really concerned you going into that bye week that you guys really wanted to focus on? Rest.
Like we were beat up, like more than everybody knows, because I'm not going to disclose injuries. We have a lot of really tough young men that played through a lot, and we needed just rest, you know, and then details, just getting back to who we are, the little things, doing all the little things right, you know, catching punts and not getting penalties and focus in on substitutions and, you know, what's our you know, ID call in a run fit, you know, and just that, you know, and tackle better and run to the ball better and throw and catch, just basic fundamentals of what football is all about. When we practice, we focused on that. And then a bunch of young guys, getting some young guys some reps, getting an opportunity to see what they can do. That was part of the rest. We would rest some of the veteran guys that have played a lot of snaps and practice a lot of the young players, and had our Champ Bowl, you know, our scout offense for scout defense, which was fun.
Going off that, in terms of your running back situation, Khalil Washington is kind of carried the load, him and Lloyd and a couple other guys down the stretch. Where we are with Simpkins and of course Brayden Bennett, have you made a decision on Bennett's situation as of yet?
No, we haven't. Simpkins will be out for the year.
Focusing in on Old Dominion, it's going to be a tough Sun Belt matchup for you guys. Talk about opening up conference play with one of the tougher opponents in the league.
Yeah, I think, everybody can beat anybody on every given Saturday or Thursday whenever you end up playing. Nothing was more evident than watching games last week when we had an off day. But certainly in conference play, Old Dominion's a very good, well-coached football team. They're very unique on offense, very unique on defense. So it's been a blessing to have an extra week to prepare for those type of things because they are different than every other team in our league. Nobody else runs the defensive scheme. Nobody else runs the offensive scheme that they do. So that's probably played to our advantage as opposed to playing them in a normal bye week or a normal week.
When you look at this ODU team, clearly their record doesn't indicate how good they are. I mean, they played at South Carolina, they played East Carolina, so on and so forth. I'm assuming you didn't have to stress that to your players that, obviously you don't look at their records. This is a good football team coming in. They played some really good teams.
Yeah, no doubt. And we talked about that already. I mean, Virginia Tech and South Carolina, are pretty good football teams, and certainly no disrespect to East Carolina, so are they. And even Bowling Green going up on the road and winning in the last minute. And they've had some injuries. They've had to play a couple of different quarterbacks throughout their season so far this year. Lost their best player on defense, and Henderson, the linebacker. And so, they are coming through adversity. They're growing as a football team, and I address that to our team. They continue to improve. They continue to get better. They're a very sound, stout defense and a very high explosive offense. So we got to come and play and bring our best game.
The one thing that pops off the sheet when you look at what they've been doing is turnovers. Got a high amount of turnovers, and you guys are creating turnovers. Obviously, that's an area that you guys are looking at that maybe you'd be able to exploit.
Yeah, no doubt. I think, we've talked about this. I say it. Sometimes I think the media thinks it's coach talk, but when you win the turnover battle and you could win third downs and you could score touchdowns in the red zone, you probably win the game, and more times than not. Last week we lost the turnover battle. We were awful in third down. Guess what? We lost the game. You could pretty much look at those three statistics and figure out whether or not, for the most part, whether you win or lose. They're going through the same thing. You listen to Coach talk about their football team going 3 for 3 in the red zone, scoring 3 touchdowns against Bowling Green. And, that's true. That's probably why they won the game. And you can hold teams to field goals and you score touchdowns and not turn the ball over and stay on the field. That's going to be a big part of the game.
Stepping aside from football real quick, Coach, have you been able to reach out to the App State program, the App State coach, and talk to them a little bit and just kind of send your prayers and regards and any kind of help that maybe Coastal can do to help those people up in Boone?
I did. I talked to Sean, I don't even remember, last week, end of the week, beginning of the week, just to see how he was doing, his family, how his team's doing, and sent back just some pictures of roads completely destroyed. I'm not talking about washed, covered with water. I'm talking about they're gone. It's pretty devastating up there, and our prayers are out. I told him anything we could do, and we're as a university trying to raise some funds to help them out any way that we can. And we've posted a lot of those on social media, ways that people can contribute to help. And I wish them the best. I can't imagine how hard it is trying to get ready to play a game with all that going on too.
Coastal Carolina head football coach Tim Beck from his press conference earlier today previewing ODU. Chalk Talk right around the corner here on Sports Talk.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Jason Weigert. Addressing the UN Security Council, U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield says Iran and its proxies are contributing greatly to the crisis in the Middle East.
The Iranian regime will be held responsible for its actions, and we strongly warn against Iran or its proxies taking actions against the United States or for their actions against Israel.
Thomas Greenfield says the council must take action against Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps.
The council sits on its hands. What message will that send? I fear that silence and inaction will only invite the RGC to repeat attacks like what we saw yesterday and on April 13th of this year, again and again and again.
Also at townhall.com, two leading papers declaring J.D. Vance the winner of last night's vice presidential debate.
The Washington Post asked uncommitted swing state voters in real time about the reaction to Tuesday's debate. They thought Vance performed better regardless on how they plan to vote in November. Among the 12 voters who leaned toward former President Donald Trump and Vance before the debate, 5 said they would definitely vote for Trump afterwards. 7 say they would still probably vote for Trump. Finally, the 2 voters who were undecided before the debate, 1 said they would probably vote for Harris, and 1 said they would vote for a third-party candidate. Politico's campaign reporters said the debate, light on body blows and heavy on policy, was won by Vance on style points. Bernie Bennett in Washington.
New study says hurricanes in the U.S. are hundreds of times deadlier in the long run than the government calculates. Wednesday's study says the average storm hitting the U.S. contributes to the early deaths of anywhere from 7,000 to 11,000 people, that over a 15-year period. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The following is not an actor, but a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
My debt problem started probably about 2016. I needed my life to change financially. I called Trinity and I ended up joining based on high credit card bills and high interest rate. And my counselor at Trinity has been great, and Trinity has been helping me to get on the right path of paying off these credit card bills, bringing down the interest rate. They have consolidated my bills into one low monthly payment. And now I am finally getting out of credit card debt. So I just want to say thank you, Trinity, for showing me a better and greater path.
If you're in debt and you need help, call Trinity at 1-800-990-6976.
My name is Sharon, and soon I will be debt-free for keeps.
1-800-990-6976. 5.
Major typhoon bearing down on Taiwan.
Residents in Taipei rushed to supermarkets and local vendors on Tuesday to stock up on goods as Typhoon Krathon draws closer to the island. At least 3 feet of rain had fallen in the coastal Taitung County in the past 4 days, and almost a foot in the major port city of Kaohsiung. Krathon is expected to make landfall early Thursday on the densely populated west coast. Typhoons rarely hit Taiwan's west coast. Authorities have shut schools and government offices and cancelled all domestic flights. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Hundreds of Portuguese firefighters have demonstrated for better working conditions. Wearing full firefighting gear, protesters occupied the steps of the National Parliament building. A line of police linked arms in front of the firefighters, who opened smoke canisters, lit flares, and sounded sirens. Breaking news and analysis, townhall.com.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here's tonight's forecast. Mostly clear this evening with a low temp dipping to 65. If you've enjoyed today's weather, tomorrow is a clone. Similar blend of sunshine and some clouds. We top off at 84 again as the high. Looking ahead, we expect high temperatures in the mid-80s throughout the rest of the week. I'm Cal Moss with your on-point local weather.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point.
Welcome back to Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network. You can reach the guys with the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number, 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now back to Phil and Chris with the second hour of Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
That's almost correct. I'm here. Chris Bergen here in Florence. Meantime, Phil is off tonight. Will be off tomorrow as well, celebrating Rosh Hashanah. So, Smitty's next couple of evenings. Phil will be back on a Football Friday, and of course, Josh Cohen taking care of business in our Columbia studios as well. 888-898-2525. We've got recruiting coming up in just a little while. Also, SC Wild, and up in just mere moments, it is another edition of Chalk Talk with coaches Chuck Reedy and Ellis Johnson. A couple of other news notes that I wanted to mention. We won't have enough time to debate this, but this will certainly be the subject of discussion on Friday when we get a chance to sit down and visit with Jeff Owens. Two NASCAR teams, including one that's owned by basketball icon Michael Jordan, have accused NASCAR of being a monopoly in a joint antitrust lawsuit filed on Wednesday morning in federal court. 2311 Racing, the team co-owned by Jordan, and also Denny Hamlin joined with Front Row Motorsports to allege NASCAR and its CEO Jim France have used anti-competitive and exclusionary practices to enrich themselves at the expense of the premier stock car racing teams. And Smitty, I just took a moment to look back over the last, probably about the last 10 years. And outside of when Martin Truex Jr. was running for, at that time, I think it was, oh goodness, was it Front Row Motorsports? Every other champion in NASCAR has been from one of the big three teams, either Joe Gibbs Racing, Hendrick Motorsports, or Penske. Michael Jordan and 2311 Racing may have a point here.
Yep. They may. NASCAR, it grew organically in a way, from the dirt track and, kind of the outlaw promotion of its events in a way that was not like Major League Baseball and the NFL. And I don't know how often the magnifying glass has been taken to their antitrust situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is a circumstance that this is something that race fans will have to keep an eye on because it could shake up the sport.
I think it may be fascinating. It was actually Furniture Row, I beg your pardon, not Front Row, that Martin Truex ran with before he's now with Joe Gibbs Racing. Major League Baseball earlier today, in case you missed it, Detroit eliminated the Houston Astros 5-2.
Go
They
Tigers.
win their wild card series. I beg your pardon? Go Tigers.
Go Tigers,
Gotcha.
yeah.
And also Kansas City leading the Baltimore Orioles, trying to eliminate the Orioles. So you'd have the number 6 seed and the number 5 seed advancing out of the wild card in the American League. That game's going to the 8th. Coming up shortly, the Mets play at the Brewers. Brewers trying to stave off the elimination. Same case for the Braves, as they will take on the Padres tonight at 8:30. All right. We've sort of speculated on how things may shake out on Saturday. Now time to get some updates and the real info from the duo on Chalk Talk.
Get ready for a deep dive into the X's and O's. This is Chalk Talk with coaches Chuck Reedy and Ellis Johnson on the Sports Talk Media Network.
One of our favorite times on a Wednesday evening, we get to sit down and visit with legendary coaches Chuck Reedy and also Ellis Johnson. Coach Reedy, we'll start with you since you're out of the country, and we appreciate the time. Coach Reedy, you with us?
Yes, sir.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Oh, great. How's your vacation going so far?
Oh, it's great. We're in Papagayo in Costa Rica. Beautiful country.
I bet it is. I've never had a chance to go to Costa Rica, so we envy you, but we appreciate you carving out a few minutes to talk football with us tonight. Coach Johnson, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, and it's been really bad up this way, and I feel very fortunate. We don't need to belabor the thing, but the power outages and some of the sufferings up in upstate South Carolina and in the mountains of western North Carolina has been just awful. So I feel very fortunate, and certainly feel for all those folks who are not as fortunate.
Yeah, we can send those same thoughts and prayers and sentiments as well. So we appreciate you guys spending a few minutes with us each and every Wednesday. So let's start before we get into this coming weekend. Let's review and rewind. Start with you, Coach Johnson. What did you take away from Clemson's 40-14 win over Stanford on the defensive side of the coin?
Well, on the defensive side, I thought that they did an okay job. They had a problem with the running game, but Stanford runs a very effective running game, tremendous amount of redirection, and kind of an unorthodox offense, really. And they did enough to, I guess you say they forced them into doing something they didn't want to do, which is throw the ball around a little bit. And then they got a pick. And I think well, excuse me, 3 picks, but I think that they've had some problems in the running game. And the only thing I see that's a possible negative, they're having problems with runs on the edge. And I think they play a large percentage of man coverage out there. And if they don't get that thing boxed or contained up in the front, it's been hurting them a little bit. But overall, another good defensive performance. If you look in the stats and everything, Clemson's not very sexy looking, but they've been playing a lot of backups because of the situations they've been in these games and score.
Coach Reedy, first off, to comment off of Coach Johnson's comments regarding the run game for Stanford, do you think that was their game plan to try and run it as much as possible, but the tempo and the flow of the game got out of hand, so they had to throw it maybe more so than they wanted to?
Yeah, well, early in the game, I mean, they throw 2 picks in the red zone early, and I mean, so they were right in the game. And if they don't throw those 2 picks, I mean, it's going to be a lot closer ball game. But they ran the ball effectively. I mean, obviously, as many points as Clemson's been putting up and how well they played offensively, you come into the game, you're going to try to run the ball. They had 33 or 34 minutes of possession time, so I think they did what they wanted to do offensively, other than the turnovers.
What do you think of Cade Klubnik's performance? Another step in the right direction, clearly, with 4 touchdowns and almost 50% passing. I mean, his efficiency over the last couple of ball games has been phenomenal. Where have you seen his growth coming from Appalachian through NC State, now through Stanford?
Well, as we talked before, I mean, he's playing with a lot of confidence right now. When you're confident, you react, you're not thinking a whole lot, you're reacting to things. And, he's been playing that way for the last 3 weeks. Obviously he wasn't, as accurate, in this ball game as he had been, that could be a little bit concerning down the road. But, made a play with his feet. And and they were they're stretching the field, and I'm assuming this is with Wesco and Moore and Turner, they've got guys that can stretch it, and they're doing that, which is and that opens up a lot of things for them.
Ellis, what are you seeing from a guy like, say, Sammy Brown, who's one of the backup linebackers that comes in and replaces the phenomenal linebacking core they got? But here's a guy, if I'm not mistaken, I saw a Pro Football Focus earlier in the week actually had him rated as one of the highest-rated freshmen in terms of their gameplay on Saturday. Just taking him for an example, but in terms of the backups, what are you seeing from Clemson since they're getting significant amount of playing time here the past couple of weeks?
There is a drop-off in their starters and their second, and I think up in the front, I'll get to Sammy here in just a second, but I think in the front it's noticeable, and they're not able to play as many guys in some tight situations that they trust. They're not getting the dynamic plays out of that front 4. They're having to bring a little bit more pressure to do that. Maybe that's hurting them on those outside runs. But Sammy, I've seen him scrimmage at least 2 or 3 times in the spring because he got in early. You'd see him make an unusual play that would jump out at you and you say, who's that guy? And, he's a freshman, a high school freshman in there for spring. But the consistency was not there. And they just said, he's got a long time to learn the system. But I noticed he's playing more, and he's making those dynamic plays that he's capable of making. He's going to be an unbelievable player. Right now, he's not as consistent and probably doesn't have a feel for the entire scheme. But every week he just gets better and better. They need some help with depth because I've noticed even scrimmages and games, the drop-off from their starters to the second level is pretty big.
2 sacks this past Saturday for Sammy Brown. It's Talk tonight. Chuck Reedy and Ellis Johnson with us, dissecting Clemson and South Carolina. All right, guys, let's get into USC and Ole Miss. And Ellis, I'm assuming that the big question for Gamecock fans is going to be how do they slow down an Ole Miss offense that prior to this past Saturday was scoring points in bunches? Can they duplicate things defensively, maybe what Kentucky threw at them on Saturday?
I don't know. They're totally different type of defense, in my opinion, than Kentucky. I hate to tell you, I didn't have any power over Saturday, so I listened to a lot of games on radio. But I did see the Ole Miss in Kentucky. I saw some of it, and I think that what I'm concerned, I don't know how good Ole Miss is. Now we got two teams who really went heavy in the portal who are going to play Saturday, Ole Miss and South Carolina. I'm not sure Ole Miss has really improved that much. They've had 3 opponents before this that were not very good. Then they played a team that's a good, solid defensive team, and it didn't get it going. So I really want to see it. Dart didn't take care of the football as well as he has. He was loose with it. He's very fortunate near the end of the game that he didn't lose a fumble there. So, I mean, I just think this game matches up really good for South Carolina. And they got to get, I think Sellers needs to be healthy. And I think he needs to play because I think the mobile quarterback will help him. But on the other side of the ball, whatever Kentucky did to slow Ole Miss down, I'm not sure South Carolina can do the same things, and they're not very similar. But I think Ole Miss has got some issues that people maybe overrated them a little bit.
That is certainly interesting. And yeah, they played a soft schedule to open the season for sure before running into Kentucky. Coach Reedy, I wonder, we talk, meaning in the media or fans, we talk about complementary football often. We talked early in the show about how it's going to help the South Carolina defense if Ole Miss's offense, which is up tempo, is on the sideline a lot. How do you guys, meaning two coordinators, handle that during the week? Does the defensive coordinator ever talk to you and say, look, you got to help us out. You got to try to stay on the field this week, or is it understood, or does the head coach come to each of you? How do you communicate with the defensive side about complementary football?
Well, I think that all of that. I mean, I think obviously the head coach has to be involved in it, but certainly, the offense and defense coordinators have to have a plan going into a game. And I think all you have to do is look at the plan Kentucky had. I mean, Kentucky, they're not real explosive on offense, but their plan was to keep the ball, run the clock. Time of possession, all of those things, keep Ole Miss offense off the field, and that's what they did. And then it got down to to a fourth quarter game, and they were Ole Miss turns it over and they win the game. So I think South Carolina has to go in with a very similar approach. I don't know. I think a key thing for South Carolina is Rocket Sanders. Is he healthy? I see where he's better, but better isn't going to be good enough on Saturday. He better be, if he's not healthy, then I think that's going to be a problem for him. But I would go in, and I think if Ellis and I were there, I think we'd go in with that approach. We're going to try to keep the ball. We're going to try to make first downs. We're going to try to keep it away from Ole Miss as much as possible.
Now, this is Chalk Talk. Coach Chuck Reedy, Coach Ellis Johnson. Coach Johnson, defensively, kind of a similar question. Ole Miss runs an up-tempo offense, and I remember you as a defensive coordinator at several of your stops. You were there. You were there right when the up-tempo offense in Oregon was making it hot, and a lot of teams in the SEC were going that way. And I thought you had a great deal of success at slowing that down. And I remember a quote you actually said once, getting lined up is a big part of it. And that sounds so simple, but maybe you can go into that because you were there right when this up-tempo offense actually got hot earlier in this century.
Yeah, I was, and y'all must have missed the very first part of it because that's how we figured out we had to change. We got schooled for about a year or two, and it was mass confusion. And what it forced me to do, I love the 3-4 system and substitute on third down to get the speed out there. But it ran us out of it. You couldn't substitute when you wanted to. You got caught on the field with bad personnel. So we went to more of a 5 DB scheme, and we started building on it and developing it. And it was a little bit of a carryover from what I did in college. But when I played, Frank Beamer was one of our coaches, and he was doing it at Virginia Tech. And that was a key. And then the other thing, we had mostly a field alignment. we didn't run players all across the field trying to match up with your receivers a whole lot. And it forces you to play a little more zone and blitz than it does, you know, the man and all these match routes. But I tell you, it forced a lot of people to change. Even Coach Saban had to eventually adjust to it and you know, figure out a way to deal with it. It's slowed back down there. It's crazy. A lot of teams now are not speeding it up as much as they used to. And I think it's just kind of a cycle that it always goes through. Offense will come up with innovation, and defenses have to adjust. And if you don't, you're not going to be successful.
All right, Chuck, we've got about 2 minutes. Let's quickly jump over to Florida State and Clemson this weekend. I'm sure when the season started, this was one of the games that everybody had circled, but Florida State is not the Florida State team that they were last year. In your mind, watching them play, if you've seen them play, what has happened to DJU?
Well, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, unfortunately, he's the same guy he was at Clemson. You know, he's just not very good. I mean, I don't know what else you can say.
Mm-hmm.
The guy, you know, I mean, wherever he's been, he you know, he went to Oregon State, had a little bit of success, but you know, at Florida State, it's been the same thing you had at Clemson. You know, he's not very accurate. You know, he's not very mobile. You know, he's just not. You know, he's not a guy that's a quality quarterback at that level.
And Ellis, if you're preparing defensively for Florida State, what does Clemson do to them, or do they continue to run out what they've done the last couple of weeks? I mean, where will they attack Florida State, do you think?
Yeah, I don't think they make any major changes. I did see the other day that Ungale may not play. He's got a broken finger.
Correct.
I don't know what this one hand or other hand, whatever.
He is out.
But yeah, Chuck hit it on the nose. I mean, he doesn't make that many bad plays. He leaves too many good plays that are out there, and he can't get out of the way. Well, he's not playing, so I don't know who the other guy is. So I don't know what to tell you Clemson would do. I would think what they would go in is just try to build on the things they've been doing and do them better, and try to get pressure on the quarterback is always a part of the game plan. But with him being out, I don't really know who the other kid is and what his strengths and weaknesses are. So I don't think it changes much for what they're doing. And I'm a little bit off my part, but their problem right now is their defensive front, which was bought in the portal, is just they're not playing. And I don't know what it is, misjudge of talent or attitude or whatever else. But for some reason, I'm afraid this will be one they try to get up for. So Clemson better be ready to play. But I just don't think there's any unique change or plan that they go into that game with.
Guys, as always, we appreciate the information, the insight, and especially for you, Coach Reedy, appreciate you carving out some time from your vacations. We'll let you get back to it.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all so much.
Yes, sir. And Coach Johnson, we appreciate the time as well. You have a wonderful weekend, and we'll talk back to you guys next week.
Sounds good.
All right. Let's line out for timeout. When we come back, Phil's favorite time of the night, even when he's not here. We've got recruiting, sponsored by Seawells, up next.
Set your youth up for a lifetime of financial success with Smart Start from Founders Federal Credit Union. Smart Start products and educational resources help teach kids and teens budgeting, and smart spending. Help them learn smart money skills to jumpstart their financial journey with Smart Start savings, debit, certificates, and educational resources. Learn more at foundersfcu.com/smartstart. Federally insured by NCUA. Membership qualification required. Terms and conditions apply.
Some insurance carriers are based in another state or only have an online presence. Not at Farm Bureau Insurance. They're a local South Carolina company that believes commitment comes with a handshake. Become part of the Farm Bureau Insurance family today by calling Buddy Bridges at 864-984-0413 or stop by the Upstate office at 726 East Main Street in Lawrence.
Football season
upon us, and that means Columbia is welcoming fans from around the corner and across the country. No matter where you're from, Gamecocks love coming together for game day energy that can only be found in South Carolina's capital city. Book hotel rooms, find pre- and post-game activities, and plan your tailgate spread with local favorites from pimento cheese to barbecue at ExperienceColumbiaSC.com. We'll see you soon, and go Gamecocks!
Call Lawyer Lisa. Experience the difference with Lawyer Lisa.
Hi, I'm Lisa Hosteller Brown. Did you know it's possible to avoid probate court after you die, regardless of what you own? Why put your loved ones through a long, stressful public process with better options for your family? Visit lawyerlisa.com to see how we can help.
Call Lawyer Lisa. Experience the difference with Lawyer Lisa.
7511 St. Andrews Road, Irmo, South Carolina.
South Carolina's taste buds have spoken, and they're asking for beef. There are more than 7,800 farms raising cattle from pasture to plate in the Palmetto State. So whether it's steaks on the grill before the big game, sirloin medallions plated for date night, or burgers with a family, make sure beef is a part of your playbook this football season. Smoked, grilled, and slow roasted. Find the best way to enjoy your beef at sccattle.org. Beef, it's what's for dinner in South Carolina. Funded by the South Carolina Beef Council, part of the Beef Checkoff program.
You've put in the work for your education. The extra early, extra late, extra work. That's because you understand education opens doors to better pay, better opportunities, and a better you. Being educated about playing the lottery is no different. It helps you be a better player, one who knows when to play and when to take a rain check. The lottery's a game, so let's keep it fun. Learn more at sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.
The South Carolina Education Lottery has introduced a new rolling jackpot, and it's big.
How big? Bigger than a striped bass? Reel 'em in.
Way bigger.
Bigger than this world-class golf course? Or
bigger than that.
Even bigger than the Gaffney Peach?
Let's just say with this new rolling jackpot, Palmetto Cash 5 is officially too big to ignore. Palmetto Cash 5 draws nightly, so play today and check if your numbers are winners in the Players Club app or at sceducationlottery.com. Overall odds are 1 in 10. Top prize odds are 1 in 850,668.
Touchstone Energy Cooperative members save more on electricity, and members save more on insurance, groceries, healthcare, restaurants, travel, concerts, and sporting events through co-op connections. Touchstone Energy is an alliance of the member-owned electric cooperatives, and as a member, the power is yours. Experience the power of co-op membership with Touchstone Energy and find out how much you can save electricity and a whole lot more at touchstoneenergy.com.
The Sports Talk Recruiting Report is sponsored by Seawell's Catering.
And, of course, the daily luncheon buffet that continues tomorrow. And, of course, it is a roast beef Friday coming up at Seawell's this weekend. So make sure you get by Seawell's and enjoy their daily luncheon buffet. Quickly, before we get into SC Wild, a couple of notes on the recruiting front. Clemson got a commitment earlier today from Mekhi Williams-Lee of Atlanta, Georgia. He's 6'2", 275 pounds. Williams-Lee made an unofficial visit, to Clemson for the Stanford game on Saturday. Had been committed to NC State until last week. Also had offers from Kansas State, Oklahoma, Mississippi State, Coastal, East Carolina, and others. He gives the Tigers now 14 commitments in their class, and he's able to replace the defensive tackle decommitment of Isaiah Campbell. So they filled that void, did the Tigers today, with Williams-Lee. Meantime, Dutch Fork linebacker Josh Smith decommitted from Coastal back on Monday after committing to the Chanticleers following a summer official visit. He did not make this move without having other opportunities, saying, quote, "I'm really just looking at 3 other options now, NC State, South Carolina, and Ole Miss." He'll be at USC this Saturday for the Ole Miss game, and he hopes to make a decision by mid-November before his Dutch Fork team gets too deep into their playoff run. All right, SC Wild coming up next here on Sports Talk.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here's tonight's forecast. Mostly clear this evening with a low temp dipping to 65. If you've enjoyed today's weather, tomorrow is a clone. Similar blend of sunshine and some clouds. We top off at 84 again as the high. Looking ahead, we expect high temperatures in the mid-80s throughout the rest of the week. I'm Cal Moss with your on-point local weather.
Are you looking for free checking and free savings? Dave Ramsey here, telling you to go see my friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They're not a mega bank that's so big they lose the ability to treat you like a human being. At Palmetto Citizens, you're not just a number, you're a member. Join today, any of their 14 locations, or at palmettocitizens.org. Federally insured by the NCUA.
The Point.
With SRN News, I'm Jason Walker. Hurricane Helene has left millions still without electricity and phone service across the Southeast since making landfall. Now, many people are relying on the old-fashioned ways of communicating. In one North Carolina town, city leaders updating residents at meetings in the town square. More than 100 people are missing after a boat capsized in the northwestern part of Nigeria earlier in the day. Authorities say most of those victims are women and children. At least 150 people were quickly rescued. Many people urging President Biden to invoke a law that is one way to suspend a strike by 45,000 dock workers. It is the Taft-Hartley Act. It authorizes the president to seek a court order for an 80-day cooling off period. This is SRN News.
If you are 65 or older. This is Fran Halloran. Tune into my show, The Intentional Living Power Hour, on Thursday mornings from 9 to 10 for simple and practical financial coaching on The Point, 100.7 FM, 1470 AM, Columbia's local talk radio experience.
You hear about all these tax credits available for getting solar power for your home or your business, and yeah, they're pretty awesome. But what about church? Yeah. What about your nonprofit? How can you benefit from tax credits if you don't pay taxes? Well, now there's a great program in place for nonprofits. Think about that. Your church still has a pretty big power bill, right? What about taking control, saving that church money every single month by using solar power from Broker Solar? Installation rebates, tremendous savings. Bet you've never even thought about it. Maybe it's time to talk about it at your church or your nonprofit. Broker Solar has all the answers. Ken and his team know every program, every opportunity for your home, your business, and yes, your nonprofit. So you can save dollars, get rebates, get government credits. Isn't it worth looking into? Online, it's brokersolar.com, or give Ken a call, 807-717 at Broker Solar. That's 807-7417, and tell him Kev sent you.
Hey, y'all, my name's Ted from Flight Deck Restaurant. It is football at Flight Deck. We're thrilled about football season. Of course, when you're watching football, there's nothing better than wings and ice-cold adult beverages. We here at Flight Deck are offering some of the most delicious meaty wings that you'll ever wrap your lips around. Flight Deck Restaurant's got hot flamethrower wings, barbecue wings, teriyaki wings, honey mustard wings. Flight Deck will be featuring Carolina and Clemson football on all the TVs all the time. So come see some great football, enjoy great wings, and sip some ice-cold adult beverages. Flight Deck Restaurant in Lexington. Thanks, y'all, and God bless.
Hello, this is Stacy Huff, host of Huff Nation Sports Zone, each and every Saturday, 10 to 11 a.m. right here on 100.7 FM, The Point, and also 1470. It'll be a fun trip around the world of sports. Huff Nation Sports Zone, check it out.
Need a break but worried about your furry friend? Don't forget, a Paws Paradise, the vacation spot your dog dreams about. Picture this: tail wags, endless play, and all the care your pooch needs while you're away. Whether it's a quick weekend or a lavish getaway, we've got you covered. Don't just take a vacation, give one. Visit apawsparadise.com or dial 551-0323 today. A Paws Paradise, where every dog has its day.
Do you crave growth for your business? That's where The Point comes in. Fran Halloran here. Kevin Cohen and the other local hosts like me have worked to create a space where listeners transform into family. Are you a local business aiming for the stars? You need to get with Kevin and let him help create an individualized blueprint for your growth using the influential stage of The Point Radio. Reach out directly at 563-8558. Teaming with The Point, make this year extraordinary.
It's SC Wild with Major Billy Downer from the Department of Natural Resources. Major Downer is here to answer your questions about South Carolina's great outdoors. Call in now at 888-898-2525 and join SC Wild on the Sports Talk Media Network.
Having a lot of fun on Wednesdays here of late, talking the great outdoors. It's SC Wild, presented by the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources here on Sports Talk. Chris Bergen along with Josh Cohen back in our Columbia studios. And as we do every other Wednesday normally, but because of the current situation here in our state with the hurricane that passed through late last week and caused so much havoc, not just on people, also on animals around the state, we're kind enough to be joined once again by Major Billy Downer of the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources. Major Downer, how are you, sir? And we appreciate your time tonight.
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on the show again. We're back on schedule, first Wednesday of the month. We're going to get into something really quick here because I know folks will be interested in this. Of course, yes, we had Tropical Storm Helene come through our state and leave quite the path of destruction behind her. It is without it goes without saying, a lot of people are hurting right now. Certainly our hearts go out to them. Our officers have been working since the storm came through, first of all, to get out of their own yards, to help their local community, and then working special missions we have now, like going to gas stations and making sure people are keeping their cool heads. As gas is somewhat short in some areas, it's getting better. And as power comes on, things are going to get better, and it's getting a lot better in the last day here, particularly. So interesting facts, we lost 1.3 million power. I mean, million people, houses, not people. 1.3 million houses lost power. And within about 2 days, we were down to 1.1, and now we're just above 500,000. And those 500,000, of course, unfortunately, if you're sitting without power right now, this is no consolation, but it's going to be a little while because those are the harder to reach places. In some cases, just because of the different electrical companies and how they are getting their power up. And in some cases, you've had transmission lines, like Santee Cooper's had some down. They're having to fix those. So a lot of things. I want to mention that as far as the boating navigation caution, the Congaree River past 77, just south of 77 there where there's a transmission line tower actually fell in the river. And that's on the Congaree River Basin. So please be careful of that area. Just again, abundance of caution. I wouldn't be on the water right now. Our rivers are up to what we would consider a major flood stage. The Wateree, the Congaree. I know I talked to some friends that were going in the swamp in Sparkleberry, and that's just not a smart idea. With water this high, it can be extremely dangerous very quickly. And if you get in trouble, you're now going to put the lives of others at risk to come get you. So please keep that in mind, particularly with the fact that we've got cell phones down. And I think that's one of the surprising things for a lot of people is that this storm, not only did it have destruction in the form of tornadoes that spun off and took down large trees and historic trees in many cases, trees that are 100 years old, and pine trees alike, it also took power down to what we're so used to, our daily life of just cell phones. It took those out. In the upstate, we had no radio as far as radio communication for a short time, no cell phone service, and no power. And all those things just combine for making it miserable when you're used to this modern world we live in. Yeah. And cell service, I'll tell you, is still spotty because a lot of cell towers are still on generators and those go in and out. So if you're wondering about cell service, what's going on, that's what's going on there. But again, first responders across the state, SLED, probation, parole, pardon services, are what we call our ESF 13 partners are working hard to, with DNR, we're working all together to work missions with the Highway Patrol and just try to keep people safe. Again, a lot of road work still going on, a lot of clearing going on. Thank goodness we're not on that I-40 corridor. What a horrible place that is right now, just with the destruction there. And it's going to be, a year probably before they're able to fix that. But anyway, again, a lot of storm damage, but with that, a lot of water coming down the rivers. And so let me get to that point. We brought in, I know Jay Cantrell's with us, and Jay, thanks for being patient and waiting on me to get through my storm talk. But we want to talk about closures for right now in the Wateree, Congaree drainage and the Santee drainage. Let's talk about that for a minute. With the historic, again, we keep hearing the word historic flood levels. We're at that 50 probably a 50-year, or what we would, if you want to really know, it would be comparative to 2015 type flooding in the Wateree, Congaree, and Santee drainage. So with that, as flooding increases, it pushes animals up onto the land and forces them into a little bit more of an unfair advantage in gathering them in areas. So Jay, let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, thanks, Billy. And yeah, again, I think some people might not think about, where the impact of this storm really was, but all that rain that fell in the upstate and in western North Carolina has to go somewhere, and a lot of it has made or is making its way across the state and down toward the coast. So, really high water levels and a lot of flooding. Again, the Congaree River Basin, Wateree River Basin, and the Santee River, as all those make their way to the coast. That ends up with flooding levels of this nature and this high, it does push animals, terrestrial animals, particularly deer that we're talking about in this case, out of their normal home range, because this floodplain gets extremely wide and it's a lot of water moving through there. And so we do this, we have authority to do this, and we do this with major flood events like the 2015 one, to where we put in these temporary closures, we delineate boundaries, not just in the area that's inundated with flood water, but a little bit outside of it as well with some dry ground, because that's where these animals get pushed to, and that's where they're vulnerable. And this is just an effort to not take advantage of deer and other animals when they're in an unnatural, exploitable, vulnerable position. They're pushed out of their normal range. They're in unfamiliar territory. Their normal escape routes are not there. Sometimes they get trapped on a little pocket of high ground, or they've been navigating through floodwater and they're sometimes, exhausted or disoriented. So it really just puts them in a position where it would be unfair and, and unethical and not sporting to take advantage of that. So we put in these closures and the boundaries we have to draw. We want people to be able to find them and identify them. So typically we're looking at what's flooded and then a little bit outside it with dry ground, and then try to find the nearest road, major road, landmark, something where we can draw these boundaries that we can map and we can describe in text, and so where it's clear where people can and can't hunt. And these are short-term things, but all this is based on data that we're getting. We've got great staff within DNR that deals with our flood mitigation, and they have models, and they're looking at the river gauges, and they're also talking with folks like Santee, Cooper, and Duke and Dominion, and getting good information on the discharge rates from the dams, because all this, this water is coming out of reservoirs, and so it's a lot of science into it, and they can predict and forecast river levels, and then we know historically when rivers are at certain flows and certain levels, what is going to get flooded, and so we can adjust. And yeah, this one, as you kind of mentioned, is right now looking very similar to the 2015 flood, which I think anybody who was in South Carolina 9 years ago remembers that well. Obviously a different event that led to the flooding as far as where the water came from, but the river levels in the Wateree, Congaree, and Santee are predicted to be about the same, or possibly even a little higher than that 2015 flood, which for years after that was referred to as a 1,000-year flood. But now these things are more and more common. And as you mentioned, I think our flood people are calling this a 50-year event, maybe a 100-year event. But and regardless, major flooding, these rivers are at very high levels, spilling out of their banks and pushing wildlife into positions where they're not, where they're exploitable and vulnerable. So that's the reason for this. So we've got these closures in place. They went into place last night at midnight, and they'll go until Sunday night at midnight. We're monitoring the situation to see, if we need to expand it, geographically. We don't think we will, or if we need to extend it in time. what it looks like right now is we'll probably be able to let that Congaree watery closure expire Sunday night. Can't say for sure, but that's what it's looking like. Those rivers should drop out fairly quick. Santee, we're keeping an eye on it. We may have to tack an extra day or 2 or 3 on that because that's further down the system, and it's just going to take longer for that water to get out, and it slows down as it gets closer to the coast and spreads out. So, we're just keeping an eye on things. But as it stands right now, those areas are closed until Sunday night late, and then if people have not seen this has gone out on news releases. It's on the front page of our DNR website and social media sites. But if you're not familiar, you can go to our website and see the maps. There's detailed maps of where the closure areas are. There's descriptions, for each county with the boundaries of these things with roads and other features. So it's, all that information is out there for people. But the main thing to keep in mind is it's temporary. It's not affecting, it's only affecting the area it needs to affect. And this is for the benefit of the wildlife species, and to not take advantage of them when they're in a rough position.
Right. So just to mention, Jay, for a couple of things, so the watery Congaree drainage is in Calhoun County, Kershaw County, Lexington County, Richland, and Sumter. That's not the whole county. It's just the portion right there at the river. And as you said, they're defined. The Santee drainage affects Berkeley County, Charleston County, Georgetown County, Williamsburg County, and Clarendon County. So those drainages affect a lot of counties. We understand that. But I want to mention this because I know personally before this decision was made to close it, we were receiving calls from concerned sportsmen that wanted to have this closed to protect the deer. So it's interesting that we receive that kind of information from people, and people just aren't out there being greedy going, oh yeah, I can get them congregated right now. People are actually telling us, hey, you need to close the season in these areas because the deer are just going to be really vulnerable right now. So I'm proud of that fact that we had sportsmen that did that.
No, it's great to have, ethical sportsmen with that feel that way. And yeah, you're correct. We started getting calls, Saturday, and Sunday and Monday, and the decision was made Monday after we had enough time to look at the data. And so, yeah, it's good that people are, of the mindset that they don't want to do things unethical. Another thing we need to point out, though, this is not for all species. There are exemptions on this. Alligator hunting, hog hunting, coyote hunting, dove hunting is still allowed in those zones. Obviously those things are coyotes and hogs are invasive and destructive species, and we don't, we're not protecting them. And then alligators are obviously in that type of environment anyway. And then, doves are not terrestrial, and so they're not affected. But, this is mostly a deer, and I think the only other small game we probably have now is squirrel season in. But yeah, this is predominantly a deer closure for the most part, because they really do get put into some predicaments in these type situations.
Absolutely. So Jay, let's talk about the deer season just for a minute. I know, what do we know so far with our newer tagging requirements? Have we gotten any interesting information on that? Anything surprising at this point? I know it's early.
I wouldn't say anything surprising, but we're happy with how the reporting system is going. The harvest reporting system that we've talked about on this program, and I think people are familiar with. It seems to be going well. It's working as planned, and I think hunters are not having any problems with it. There's a few little human error things here and there that we're able to fix, with a errant report or a double report or something. But no, it's good. We're getting good data. It's a little early to do any analysis, but no, we're happy with the system, and hopefully hunters are happy with it. We've been getting some positive feedback, and we'll definitely, when we get a little further into the season, start putting some information out to the public on, just some kind of summary stats, so far, and so people can kind of see what's happening. But no, it's working well. And, obviously with this situation after the storm, we've run into a couple things, that it came to our attention that over in the Aiken area, which was hit particularly hard, there's no cell phone service in large areas. People are having a difficult time reporting, and we'll work through that. We've kind of let people know, hey, that's extenuating circumstance, and report when you're able to. This is a unique situation, but no, it's going well.
So can you look at like we did during turkey season? Can someone go on there through the app and look at what's been taken so far?
Yes, they can. Yeah, that's a good point. Within the Go Outdoors SD mobile app, when you open that app up, there's a digital. I can't remember the name of it, but it's on the screen. It's thank you. The little digital backpack, and there's a hunter's toolbox in there. And if they click on that, it pulls up where they can kind of, query the system based on a specific date or a range of dates. You can look at the whole season. You can look at a particular county. You can look at a particular WMA or list all WMAs or list statewide. It gives you some options on what you want to look at. But yeah, people can absolutely go in and see totals of bucks, does, button bucks, total harvest, so far for the season. So that's a great tool for the public, for hunters to use and keep up with. We've had that for turkeys, and that's been really popular there. But same thing is in place for deer, and people can go on and kind of see what the harvest is looking like in their county or statewide or their favorite WMA or whatnot. So it's a great
interesting.
tool.
I'm looking right now. Private lands total is over 16,000 to date. That's pretty cool, and just under 10,000 in bucks. So interesting.
Yeah, we'll see those numbers really start climbing. The bulk of our harvest is usually in October and the first part of November, and so we'll probably see those numbers really jump in leaps and bounds as temperatures cool off and the rut gets going. And there's a lot of the state that the firearm season's not even in yet. Up in game zone 1 and 2, so there's still a lot of deer season in front of us, and I think we'll see those harvest numbers really start taking leaps and bounds, particularly on the weekends, over the next 5 or 6 weeks.
Absolutely. There's no doubt. It's it's interesting. I think it's just, I like looking at the stats to see. It's just cool to see when you want to look at a report. You can select all, look at the counties, and it tells you by county total harvest. And
right.
For those that like to get it in the numbers, it's pretty neat. Obviously,
it is.
You look at counties like Orangeburg is far above everybody else, but they've had a season since August 15th, which is interesting.
Yeah, they've had a long season, and you got to keep in mind too. Orangeburg is one of the largest counties in the state, landmass wise, so that skews things a little bit. But yeah, it is kind of cool to compare counties or parts of the state. And I want people to realize too, what's available publicly there is just some totals on, bucks, does, button bucks, total harvest. But obviously we're getting additional information in there, on weapon type, time of day, and then there's some optional stuff in there on weights and antler points and spreads. Right. So we will have other data that we're able to see and analyze that we'll put out for people to see. So there's going to be a lot of really interesting information to look at, and then to be able to kind of plot out a graph of the season and see peaks and when harvest jumps up and my guess is the rut in South Carolina is typically right around
mid-October to mid-November.
Yeah, or even if you want to narrow it down a little bit more, the last week of October and the first week of November is really the peak, right around Halloween and a few days either side. So I anticipate we'll see a really big leap in the harvest right in there. But no, it's great data. We're excited about it. It gives us a lot better information than we've had in the past, and we'll make sure that we share that information with the public. It's not just going in a black hole and going away. We're going to we're going to share it and let people see it. And I think hunters will be very interested and be able to learn some things from it.
Absolutely. So before we go tonight, Jay, let's just remind folks real quick our requirements this year. When you buy your big game permit, you're going to receive, 5 tags, $3, 2 does.
Yep.
Everybody gets that. Those are 3 unrestricted tags. You can buy 2 additional antler restricted tags and an additional 5 doe tags.
Well, you can buy an additional 4 doe tags.
4
if you're in, get 2 bonus. Yeah.
If you're in the certain counties and you're in game zone 4, right? 3 and 4 for those bonus.
Actually, the bonus everybody gets, but now they're valid in game zone 2 as well. So.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, we're all learning something tonight. But when you get your tags online, we've always required you to tag the deer at the point of kill. That's still a requirement for now. You've tagged that with your physical tag. You need the physical tags in possession when you're hunting. Your license can be on your phone, but you need those physical tags with you so that you can physically tag the deer, again, in the rear leg through the hock there, as we call it. But if once you do that, this year there's an additional requirement to go on your phone or on the internet, or there's a phone number to call, several different ways. Most people will use the phone app to report that take. And as Jay said, that's where we're getting these numbers from. And that's required this year, that you tag also on the phone and you check that tag and you describe, basically, Jay, what are the things real quick that we were looking for? The mandatory things?
It's basically county, what type of deer, buck, doe, or button buck, and then weapon type, time of day, and then there's some optional things for weight and some antler measurement. But it's very basic information, but it's good information. But yeah, that's required either prior to you taking it to a processor or no later than midnight of the day of harvest. So, but yeah, like I said, I think it's working well. People are happy with it. We're happy with it, and it'll be some good information. But yeah, we're excited to see how the season turns out.
Well, Jay, again, thanks for joining the show tonight. We'll be in touch with the public here after Sunday to see where we go with the rest of the season on the watery congaree drainage specifically, and the santee drainage. That's the only area affected for now. But again, tonight, folks, as we leave tonight, just want to thank you for listening. I hope that you've got power. If you don't, our prayers are certainly with you, and I hope that you get power soon. Please stay safe. And I'll tell you one thing, we've had an officer incident involved in this too. Just please be careful with chainsaws and cutting limbs. Those limbs under tension will snap back and pop you in the face, the arm, and they'll break bones. Trees don't break for your body, so please be careful out there. And also watch down power lines. Again, there's many of those still out there tonight as we go through the show, even today. And here we are, 6 days after the storm went through, almost 7 days coming up. We've still got lines down everywhere. So please be careful when you're out. And if you're out and about and you're getting fuel and you're in a line, just going to ask you to please be patient. Everybody's trying to wait for gas too. And I know you need gas for your generators. You need gas for other things, your vehicle and those things. But just please be patient with others, and we'll all get through this on the backside.
Well said, Major Downer. We appreciate it tonight. Great info. Thanks for your time tonight. And also want to thank Jay Cantrell for joining us as well for SC Wild, presented by the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources, and DNR always does great stuff. And I was actually really, really proud of our state when they were talking about hunters that have actually gone out and talked to DNR about, hey, you need to close this portion of the hunting grounds because the deer will not have the fighting chance. I thought that was fabulous stuff there for sure. All right, folks, that's going to wrap up this Wednesday edition of the program. We're back tomorrow. We've got a really, really good show planned for you. A couple of interesting, fun stuff. Don't want to give up just yet in case it doesn't come through, but hopefully it will. And we'll also have, of course, the M&M boys to break down the Gamecocks, Ole Miss, and also Clemson, Florida State. Should be fun. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and we'll see you back here tomorrow night on Sports Talk.
WXL Columbia, W264DF.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Jason Walker. Addressing the UN Security Council, U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield says Iran and its proxies are contributing greatly to the crisis in the Middle East.
The Iranian regime will be held responsible for its actions, and we strongly warn against Iran or its proxies taking actions against the United States or for their actions against Israel.
Thomas Greenfield says the council must take action against Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps.
If this council sits on its hands, what message will that send? I fear that silence and inaction will only invite the RGC to repeat attacks like what we saw yesterday and on April 13th of this year, again and again and again.
Also at townhall.com, two leading papers declaring J.D. Vance the winner of last night's vice presidential debate.
The Washington Post asked uncommitted swing state voters in real time about their reaction to Tuesday's debate. They thought Vance performed better regardless on how they plan to vote in November. Among the 12 voters who leaned toward former President Donald Trump and Vance before the debate, 5 said they would definitely vote for Trump afterwards. 7 say they would still probably vote for Trump. Finally, among the 2 voters who were undecided before the debate, 1 said they would probably vote for Harris, and 1 said they would vote for a third-party candidate. Politico's campaign reporters said the debate, light on body blows and heavy on policy, was won by Vance on style points. Bernie Bennett in Washington.
New study says hurricanes in the U.S. are hundreds of times deadlier in the long run than the government calculates. Wednesday's study says the average storm hitting the U.S. contributes to the early deaths of anywhere from 7,000 to 11,000 people, that over a 15-year period. More on these stories at townhall.com.
You just grin and bear it or bite the bullet when it comes to